There's no rules and no roadmap, so do what you want with Donald Gray.
We're rolling. Okay. We're going to play this by ear is what we're going to do. Actually, I saw like a Red Bull back there. Can I go grab one? Thank you. All right, people. Here we go. So if you're watching this, you're probably like, what the fuck is Donald doing on a podcast set? Actually, before I even, let's fix this. First off, my name is Donald fucking Gray, and welcome to this podcast that I'm starting. It's called Do What You Want with Donald Gray. Who let me start a podcast? Not a clue. I just kind of woke up one day with some delusion and a little bit of confidence, and I was like nothing's stopping me from actually doing that. I have a producer, Mateo. He's the man. He's not currently in front of me, which honestly is for his benefit. I'm in the studio. I decided to start a podcast on my birthday. I just turned 23. And side note, I must have some crazy fucking luck because I love Taylor Swift and she decided to announce her new album on my birthday at 12/12. I feel pretty cool about that. Like today's just been such a good day so far. I should be working right now, but instead I'm here recording this podcast. So if you're my boss and you're seeing this or any of my coworkers, just scroll or like stick around. If you're wondering why I look so crazy right now and decrepit, like if you really zoom in on my eye bags, it's because I just got off of a flight. I came back super late last night around like 11 p.m. I spent the last 2 weeks in New York City and Los Angeles as like a 2-week long birthday trip. And it kind of just happened. I had no planning. LA was just so like, I literally have like my notes app where I just kind of wrote random places to be. And then I just showed up and then I figured out the rest from there. So that's why I look so awful right now, is because I haven't really gotten much sleep for the last 2 weeks. I'm a little bit jet lagged. I was like, I got to get up and record this podcast, but I really wanted to do this on my birthday because I just felt like it would be pretty symbolic and more special if I did it on my birthday. When you guys are watching this first episode, it's not going to be my birthday. It's going to be a couple weeks after. All right. So why am I starting a podcast? I feel like most of the time when you look at podcasts, you're looking at your favorite influencers, you're looking at your favorite content creators, and you're looking for what they have to say, and you want it in video or audio format. I'm starting a podcast because I wanted a little bit of creative freedom to express myself in a different format. I post on TikTok a lot. I post on Instagram a lot. I actually made a TikTok about posting on Instagram. Like, why are we afraid to post on Instagram? It's your fucking Instagram. You don't have to have anyone's permission to post. Like, just do what you want. And that's kind of the premise of this podcast is do what you want. Like, you don't need anyone's permission to do what you want. You don't need to be the most prepared. You don't need to be told or given, like, just go out there and do it. And most of the time you're going to find that what was holding you back from doing what it is that you wanted to do was just anxiety, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of a lack of confidence, and a little bit of nerves. I also wanted to do this because I wanted to document my 20s. You know, your 20s are such a pivotal time in your life where you're constantly going through stuff. You're constantly feeling things. You're constantly going through new emotions. And I feel like I should probably move this. There's just stuff constantly going on, like 24/7. I needed an outlet to kind of explain why my life is so crazy. Because I feel like a lot of people tend to lead a like low key life. You know, they like their routine. They like their day to day. They stick to their 9 to 5. That is not me at all. Like, I'm constantly like the fact that I'm here right now instead of working. I'm technically on the clock. I'm kind of working, but I have the studio space for 2 hours. So this is what I'm doing instead of working. You know, I kind of planned my trips to New York and LA so last minute. And those were the first times I've ever been to New York or LA. I've technically been to New York one time. It was an 8-hour day trip that I did with my best friend, Alyssa Veruto. And I didn't even get to see most of the city. Like, obviously I was only there for 8 hours. Manhattan is huge, but we're going to talk more about New York and LA in the next episode, just because it was a crazy fun trip. Exhausting, very, very exhausting. Just, I recommend if you're going to take that long of a vacation, like maybe actually schedule in some vacation days where you're not moving around every single day. A little bit of drama, of course. You just cannot go on a vacation for 2 weeks without there being a little bit of drama here and there. So we're going to get into that in the next episode, kind of what you can expect. Sorry, I keep looking at my computer just because I was on my flight last night trying to plan out these episodes because I kept telling myself to do it. Like for the last month or two, I was like, okay, I need to plan this podcast. I need to make sure I know what I'm doing, maybe practice a couple times. I meant to go practice, but we're doing this completely off rip, no prior preparation. Was on my flight for 3 hours last night, just typing away at my computer, okay, this bullet point, these are the things you're gonna talk about. But I like to think I'm pretty good at just rambling and kind of going off into tangents. So this is going to be a solo podcast as of right now. I've talked about starting a podcast with my friends so many times. Who I could actually get to commit to doing it, it's few and far between. I do want to have guests at some point, and then I just want to dive into a lot of topics that I feel like don't get enough attention. Just, things about life or things about the way you should look at life. I just feel like I have a lot to say. If I had to describe this podcast in a couple words, I'd say it's existential, a little bit chaotic, but still kind of funny. Hopefully. I don't know. I don't think I'm that funny, but some people have told me I am. So enough about what this podcast is about. Let me talk to you guys about who I am. And if you don't care who the fuck I am, I would probably skip about 5 minutes. Who the fuck am I? Where did I grow up? What do I do for work? Why am I sitting here doing this podcast? Where do I live? So obviously you already know. If I hadn't said it a billion times already, my name is Donald fucking Gray. Okay. I don't have a middle name. It's just Donald Gray. But I like to add the fucking for emphasis. I think it just makes me sound cooler. I live in Tampa, Florida right now. But I accidentally moved to Florida, which is something we're going to get into in this episode, how I accidentally moved to Florida. I feel like a lot of my friends know that I live in Florida. Everyone I know right now knows that I live in Florida, but they don't really know why I live in Florida. It just kind of happened. It woke up one day and then all of a sudden I was living in Florida. I started living in Florida before I even knew I was living in Florida, if that makes sense. So we'll get into that. But I grew up in Washington, D.C. I lived in D.C. for 10 years, in the city. I also think growing up in the city is super interesting because it really makes you grow up fast, super, super fast. I had to grow up quick. I was self-sufficient. I just learned a lot. Also, it teaches you to keep your wits your wits around. Is that how you say it? Your wits around you. I don't even know how you're supposed to say it. And I went to school at Virginia Tech. This is a Virginia Tech hat if you couldn't tell. Virginia Tech was an amazing 4.5 years, crazy, amazing 4.5 years. Not going to get into it in this episode, but there will definitely be a couple episodes dedicated to my college experience and specific things in college. I did a lot in college. I was in a fraternity. I was on my school's cheer team. And yeah, I think I did a lot of fun stuff in college. So I think those are going to be some fun episodes to kind of talk about. And then where I live. Again, I live in Florida. I live in Tampa. How did I get here? Before we get into that, let's start with some unexpected facts about me. These are some facts. I have a couple facts that I don't even think some of my closest friends really know. You just wouldn't know until I told you. The biggest fact that surprises the most people, and that'll probably surprise a lot of the people that follow me on Instagram that know me decently well, is that I have a twin sister. I don't really talk about her a whole lot because we're not super, super close, and she lives in DC. I live in Florida, whatever. But I have a twin sister. Growing up, we were decently close, but we just had an average sibling relationship, hated each other sometimes, stuck together others. It was what it was. I went to 10, not 9, not 11, 10 different schools growing up, which was kind of insane for my development. It's not because I was in a military family. It's not because I was a delinquent kid. It was simply because my mom was a little crazy. She just, every single year, pretty much, she found a reason for me to go to a new school. As a result, though, I did gain and pick up a lot of things. I learned how to be super adaptable, super social, because I was constantly meeting new people. I had to make new friends every single year. It was so frustrating. Now I look back at it and I'm like, you know what? I'm actually so glad I had to do that because one, a lot of people don't even really stay in touch with the people that they went to kindergarten with. So it didn't really matter if I was switching schools every year at that point. When I got to middle school and high school, it got pretty annoying, but it taught me to meet a ton of different people and just, I don't know, it taught me a lot of social skills that I'm super grateful for now in life. And now I can go out into the real world and make connections super easily. I think that's something I'm really good at, is making connections. Yeah. So 10 different schools. Oh, I'm getting birthday texts, which I should probably turn off my notifications so that doesn't go off the whole episode. If you couldn't already tell, because I kind of alluded to it earlier, I'm a pretty big Swiftie. So obviously when I landed from my flight, got home around 11 p.m., opened Instagram, and then people were like, she's going to announce something at midnight. And Alyssa texted me and she was like, it would be crazy if she dropped something at midnight. And I was like, okay, that would be the perfect birthday gift ever. I was obviously super excited. I happened to be wearing orange. That was unintentional. And the theme of her album, if you don't already know, is like orange and green. So that was like super, like the synchronicity there was kind of insane. These are the most interesting facts, I think, to start off this podcast. If you are curious into who I am as a person, but you really never know. Like you really never know who people are, at least until they show you and or tell you, like I am on this podcast. Let's get to how we got here. All right, because it's a pretty interesting story. It's not that crazy, but it also kind of ties into why I'm starting this podcast, because I just didn't expect to be here. And when I say here, I mean specifically in Florida, living in Florida. I actually used to live in Orlando when I was like way younger. I went to kindergarten and first grade in Orlando. Like I basically started school and my life there. Those were where my earliest memories were formed. So I have a soft spot for Florida, and I never thought I would like be back in terms of living here again, because after like 7 or 8 years old, I moved up to the DMV area. If you're not from the DMV or have never heard that term, that just stands for DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I went up to Virginia first and then spent 10 years in DC and then finished out high school in Maryland. So the fact that I'm back in Florida, the state of Florida, is kind of crazy. I've actually been here since last December, so it's been 9 months. That's insane. But how exactly did I move to Florida, and why was it accidental, and why am I here? I was in my last semester of college last fall, and I had a really good friend. Her name is Kate. Shout out Kate. We went to college together. She was in my best friend from college's sorority. She was like 2 years older than her. They were roommates. Kate and I got super close. We would play Fortnite a lot. Me, Kate, and her cousin, Callie, we would always play Fortnite all of last semester, like every single night. It was kind of an addiction. So I was working this job in influencer marketing, which I just realized I never really told you guys what I actually do for work. I work in influencer marketing and content strategy, very social media realm type industry. That's what I do for work. I work with this really cool company. They are based in New York City. They also have an office in Miami, which I've never been to Miami, but hopefully soon I'll go visit the office down there. I was working this job last semester, and it's from August to December. It was like kind of a contract position. It was like more of an internship, but I was getting paid like full time. I thought I was gonna get a return offer because that was kind of the goal. At least that's what they told everyone. A lot of things happened that ended up resulting in me not getting a return offer. Not necessarily due to any fault of my own, but I'm not going to sit here and absolve myself from any responsibility. But that is something I'll get into in like another episode. But basically, I didn't get this return offer, but I didn't know that I was not going to get a return offer from this company till about 2 weeks before my last semester of college. I've been having meetings with kind of like upper management, and they were like, oh, well, we'll find a place for you. Don't worry. Like, we have something in mind, yada, yada, yada. And then about like a week or so before my contract is supposed to end, I get told, hey, we don't have anything for you, basically. They pulled like a 180 on me, and I was like, oh, okay, well, thanks for letting me know, because I probably would have spent the last month or two applying for other jobs instead of expecting that I was going to get something from you guys. But that's neither here nor there. That was also 9 months ago, so I promise I'm not bitter at all. While all this is happening, right, while I'm trying to figure out like, okay, I'm going to finish college this semester, I'm going to figure out like what job I'm working, I am still trying to kind of like piece together my life. I'm talking with Kate. We're playing Fortnite all the time. Kate's birthday is in January. So she's like, oh, like I want you guys to come visit me down in Florida. She'd moved down to Tampa in September. So basically the beginning of my semester, so that we could go to Disney. Disney's in Orlando. It's about an hour away. Super easy day trip. Kate also has this blind cat. All right. This blind cat, known this cat since I was like, a sophomore. I guess she got it my junior year. Somewhere between my sophomore and junior year of college. I've watched it many, many times. So me and this cat, Medley, super close. All right. She was going home for the week of Christmas. So she also, all semester pretty much, kind of been hinting at like, hey, can you like fly down also to watch my cat because I don't want to take it on a plane. And I kind of was like, I mean, we'll see. I basically came to a compromise with her and I was like, you know what would be really fun is instead of me flying down to Florida to watch her cat during the week of Christmas and then flying back to Virginia to only have to fly back down to Florida a week or two later, why don't I just stay in Tampa for an entire month? I'll just crash on your couch. It'll be fun. We can do New Year's together. We can go out and then we'll celebrate your birthday. And then I'll leave after your birthday. It'll be great. That was supposed to be the plan, but that's not what ended up happening. Flashback. I get told I'm not going to get a return offer, so I'm going to have to figure something out. But I need to buy my flight down to Florida. I decided to only book a one-way flight down here. And the reason I did that was because I didn't really know the exact date I'd come back in January. Like I knew when Kate's birthday was. I knew kind of the weekend that we were going to go to Disney, but I didn't know whether like I'd be coming back on like a Monday or a Tuesday. So I was like, you know what, it's fine. I'm just going to buy a one-way flight and I'll buy the other flight later. I think I had like a ton of American airline miles. Excuse me. A lot of American airline miles. So I wasn't really worried about the flight. I was like, it'll whatever. I'll just grab it later. That was a mistake, but it wasn't really a mistake because it's the reason I'm here today. I came down to Florida, spent the first week down here in Tampa by myself. She left me her car keys, her apartment keys, and it was kind of cool. I was like, all right, never been to Tampa. This is a chiller city. It wasn't as much of a city as I thought it was going to be. It's very suburban. Like I said, I grew up in DC, so I just am used to more like hustle and bustle. Tampa's not necessarily that. A lot of cities in the South aren't really like that, to be honest. Whatever. Kate comes back. We're vibing. We go out for New Year's. Things are going great. This entire time, I'm kind of like, I need to get on it. I don't have a job. I need to start applying for jobs. So I spent pretty much all of December, all of January, frantically applying for jobs. I'm applying left and right, but it's the end of the year. So a lot of companies aren't really sure like what they're like planning out their Q1. So basically I wasn't going to hear anything back until maybe the end of January at the earliest. People are all out of office, obviously, for the holidays as well. So I kind of am like, all right, well, I'm just chilling here. I'm broke. I've got no money. I don't even got a return flight, crashing on my friend's couch, whatever. Kate's cousin, Callie, lives in the same apartment complex as Kate, or at the time she did. When I got down here, meeting all the friend group, like the entire friend group down here, all the friends, hanging out with them. And she's like, oh, you need a job? I wouldn't mind giving your resume to my manager. Now, Kate's cousin, Callie, works in healthcare recruitment. And I majored in neuroscience. Specifically, my major was computational and systems neuroscience. I know I say that, and you're probably like, but you work in influencer marketing and social media now. Like, what the fuck? I know. I'm probably going to do like a whole episode on like college majors and career and why none of that fucking matters. I was kind of like at the point where I was like, okay, well, I really need something. So if you think you can get me hired, then sure, here's my resume, give it off to your manager. Within like 72 hours, I had a job, full-time job, benefits. I was kind of like, yes, we're good to go. Except this job was here in Tampa, which meant that I had to move to Tampa. And I hadn't really thought about it before I accepted it. I was just kind of like, I'm going to do this for now, and then we'll see. The job that I was working in college was fully remote. It was probably like the third remote job I had while I was in college. I got a lot of remote jobs in college. Great. Gave me a lot of flexibility. And that's what I was kind of looking for when I was done with college. So now I'm working a typical 9-to-5 doing healthcare recruitment. And I'm not going to lie, I was working that job. I worked that job from January to May or June, actually. And it was fine. I was going to sit here and be like, I was freaking miserable. It was awful. It really wasn't that bad of a job. But I would go into work every day and I'd be sitting in my cubicle and I would literally be thinking about when the last day I would have to come in for the week is, and then when the last day I would ever have to come into the office was, because it just wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And I'd look around at my coworkers and I'd be so confused on how they were so fine with it. They were all, I was like the youngest one in the office. I think I was 22, I'm 23 now. I speak of all of this as if it wasn't a couple months ago. Like, this is all still pretty new for me. I knew I was pretty young, so I was like, okay, maybe at some point, like, I'm gonna get used to this and this will be fine. But that just never happened. And I was like, I could just see myself here in 3 years being kind of upset that I stuck with this 9 to 5 routine, and it was comfortable. And then, I had benefits and I had a paycheck, but I was like, this is not what I want to be doing, like, at all. I know I majored in neuroscience, but like the plan with that was to go to medical school, but I put that on hold. That plan, that dream is like something I'm going to pursue later in my later 20s, because I have the rest of my life to work. Like, I'm not in a rush. So basically the entire 6 months that I was working at this job, I was applying for other jobs. I literally was applying for other jobs while I was on the clock. And how I got my current job was by doing that. And I'll probably talk about that in another episode, because I love my current job. And if you're ever interested in how to get into influencer marketing, content strategy, talent management, I would love to talk about it and do an episode. I've actually had so many people from college reach out to me about kind of like what I do, because I like post a lot on TikTok, and they're like, oh my God, like, you just seem like you have such a fun, flexible life, and the work you do is so super fun and cool. Whatever. That's a whole different episode. Working in healthcare recruitment, realized I have to move to Florida. I think it was the last weekend of March that I flew back up to Virginia, grabbed all my stuff into a U-Haul, and moved down to Florida. When I was packing everything up and I was like ready to go, and let me just do a quick time check. 30 minutes. Okay, we're doing pretty good on time. I was packing everything up in my college apartment, and right when I was done, I hopped into the driver's seat of my U-Haul and I was ready to go. And it was a 14-hour drive just with traffic. I was leaving at like midday. I started bawling. I'm not a super emotional person. I don't cry like often, maybe every couple months, maybe. I just started bawling and I couldn't stop. I didn't know why. I also wasn't expecting it. I just didn't think it was going to be that emotional, but it was just like so symbolic. The end of one chapter, the start of a new one. And I busted out my phone and I just like propped it up on the steering wheel and I just recorded myself crying. And I made this TikTok. It's at like 850,000 views. Elf commented on it for some reason. And it was like the most vulnerable video I've ever posted in my entire life. And it was just me crying and just feeling my emotions about the fact that I was moving on from college, because college truly was the best 4.5 years of my life. And I don't think it's going to be the ultimate best 4.5 years. Like, I think my life is still, like, honestly, I'm so happy with where I am in life right now. And I think it's just going to keep getting better and better. But at the time, it was just so sad to be saying goodbye to all of that. Just keep this in mind. I'd been living in Florida at this point for 3 months, didn't realize for those entire 3 months, oh my God, like, I'm moving here. Like, this is where I got a job. This is where I got to start my life now. And I just wasn't ready to say goodbye. Like, that was not the plan. That's how we kind of got to where we are today. I left out a lot of details because it was not that simple. And I know that story in itself wasn't even that simple. There's a lot of other things that happened in between me flying down to Florida to watch my friend's cat and then me moving down to Tampa. A lot. I was going back and forth constantly about whether this is what I wanted to do. I was going back and forth with whether I wanted to actually live here. I always dreamed of living in a city after college, like a bigger city. No offense, Tampa. So for me, that was like New York City. That was like DC. I grew up in DC and I thought like DC could be really fun. Just as an adult now, everyone around me was just telling me how unrealistic that was. Everyone around me was. And I know it was coming from a place of good intention. 1, I was broke. 2, I was squatting on like my friend's couch for 6 months. But that's just not the way that I look at life. Like, yes, there's a sense of realism that you have to have when you go about things. But I trust myself enough to know that I'll be fine. And I could do a whole episode about this like perspective and way of thinking that I have, that I really feel like if more people adopted would change the way they go about life and also change their lives. We'll get into that later. Everyone told me, you can't move to New York, it's too expensive. I kind of was like, yes, I can. Did they win that argument? Technically speaking, yes, because I obviously live in Florida now. But the reason I live in Florida is because I had a really good friend from college reach out to me, and he asked if I wanted to sign a lease with him. He's from like 2 hours south of here. Had he like waited maybe 2 or 3 more weeks to ask me, I'd be in New York City right now. I don't know how I would have. All the money that I just spent on my 2-week birthday trip to New York and LA would have been spent moving to New York City. But I basically kind of convinced myself at a certain point that, you know what, this would be really good if I spent a year in Florida, kind of slowed down because it is a slower pace and my life is constantly changing. I've had a lot of change within the last 9 months, from leaving college, coming down to Florida, accidentally moving down here, switching. Like I've had 2 jobs this year already. I did healthcare recruitment. And now I work back in influencer marketing, content strategy, which I've been working since I was like a junior in college. Like maybe I just need a year of stability. And you know what? I kind of convinced myself that moving to New York, while yes, it would have been super fun and like what I always wanted, doing it while I barely had like anything in my bank account would have been awful. And I would have still been broke until probably the end of this year when I finally got on my feet and things were more stable. So the new plan is I'm here for another year and I'm saving money and I'm playing it a little bit safe, which is not my style, but I'm still gonna have some fun with it because do what you want. That's the whole name of this podcast. So kind of major turning points to where I am now. I'm comfortable. I'm happy. I feel like I have my community down here. I think that was one of the biggest things I was struggling with when I first came down here. And the reason I was so back and forth and was like, I'm not staying here. I'm moving to New York. Get me the fuck out of here, was because I didn't have a huge community. Yes, I had my one really good friend, Kate. Yes, I had been adopted into their friend group. They had this group chat. It was called 666, it was called 666. It's now called 777 because I joined it. And yeah, they were all great. But 4 of those people I'd only met within the last month when I first got down to Florida. One of them I've known for like 3 or 4 years. And then the other one I've only known for like a year or 2. So for me, I was like, okay, well, everyone else that I know and all of my other really, really good friends, not that the people down here I don't appreciate, all live up north. They all live in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York. Like I want to go back. I want to go back up there and feel like I have my community still. And that was like the biggest like resistance that there was for me, was that I just didn't have a community. But the thing about community is that it takes time to build. So while in the first month or 2, I kind of felt, I wouldn't say alone, but just like far away from everyone else that I knew, by month 6, I actually felt the opposite. I felt like I had built such a good community for myself down here. Obviously, it was through 777 and all of the people who supported me for the first 6 months that I moved down to Florida. But it was also because a lot of people that I went to college with ended up reaching out to me when they graduated this past spring saying, hey, I'm moving down to Florida. I'm moving down to Tampa. It looks like you're having such a great time down there. Do you have any recommendations? Yada, yada, yada. And when people started to do that was when I realized, oh my God, you know what? Maybe this is not a bad place to be. Maybe I can help some people out. I've actually had a lot of fun the past 6 months that I've been here. And my community is only growing. And I was constantly meeting new people. I was making new friends. And that's how I accidentally moved to Florida. Now, is Tampa and Florida where I plan to be forever? Absolutely not. I'm actually planning on moving to New York City in a year. I'm still on that. One of my really good friends, Allie, visited New York, I want to say about a month or 2 ago, to see her old friends. And she came back to Florida and was like, yeah, I can't stay here for much longer. And I was like, thank you. You finally get what I'm talking about. There's just like a certain energy in New York City. And it's you either get it or you don't. That's all I can say. Next episode, we're going to get into New York and LA because you're either a New York City person or an LA person. In my case, I might be both, or you're neither. Maybe that's not maybe you want to live in Iowa in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by cornfields or something. And if that's your prerogative, I'm not hating on that. I'm not judging that. I just knew who I was and what I wanted from the very beginning. So Florida just wasn't it for me. Whatever. At least Tampa wasn't. But now I like Tampa. Now Tampa's great. And Tampa does feel like home. So like I said, I was just in New York City and Los Angeles for the last 2 weeks. And it was a crazy, crazy 2 weeks. Not necessarily the craziest trip I've ever been on. I went to Spain my sophomore year of college, at the end of it. And that was a really crazy trip. But the last 2 weeks have been kind of crazy and super fun and freaking amazing. So I want to talk more about it in the next episode. I'm going to tease a little bit of it right now. So every single year, my best friend from high school and I do a birthday trip. And I say every single year. This started, when was our first trip together? We've basically just spent our birthdays together every single year. The reason we do this is because her birthday is on August 11th. And today, being August 12th, the day I'm recording this first episode, are back to back, basically. So we just do a combined birthday trip every single year. When I was 20, we went to Cancun. When I turned 21, we went to Charleston. It wasn't just me and my best friend, though. I invited a bunch of people down for that. Last year, we just spent it in DC at home. I also went up to Philly. It was kind of like a multi-regional city kind of thing for me. But that's we just have been kind of spending our birthdays together every single year. It's convenient. It's easy. She's also just been someone that I've traveled with for so long outside of her birthday. I think the people that you go on vacation with, you need to be very specific and particular about, because you're either type A and everything has to be planned out, which I'm a little bit of that, or you're type B where you're just kind of going with the flow, which I'm also a little bit of that. And my best friend from high school, she's more very much type B. And I have enough type A that we can go on trips together, not have everything planned out, but still have a really good time. When we were thinking about where we were going this year, she really wanted to do something not in the United States. She travels a lot and has been kind of doing this world tour recently. I can't even begin to list the name of places she's gone just because I'm I can't keep up. So she was suggesting things in the Dominican. I just have no personal interest in going to the Dominican. If I'm going there, it's literally just so I can turn my brain off and drink for a week. And we kind of settled and compromised on Los Angeles because I'd never been there. She'd never been there. And I think growing up, I had this idea of LA as this super cool place because obviously Hollywood. I think growing up, I wanted to go to UCLA. We didn't really have an idea of what we were going to do there. We just were kind of we're going to vibe. But it ended up being a really, really good trip. And I was kind of worried before going just because I knew that I was also going to New York City, that I was going to like LA and I was going to like it a little bit more than I liked New York. And for some reason, want to move there instead. Whether that's the case, we'll get into in the next episode. But yeah, so that's how we settled on LA for my birthday trip. New York City kind of just happened because when I was still in the process of deciding whether I wanted to stay in Tampa, I was okay, well, let me just at least go visit New York before I make any final decisions. I have one really good friend that I cheered with in college that lives up there. So I was only supposed to be in New York for 3 days and I ended up staying for 5. I'll get into why that happened as well. Both trips were super fun. I did a lot in both places and we'll get into that pretty soon. LA surprised me. I'm not going to lie. It really surprised me. And the reason it surprised me was because when I first touched down in LAX and left the airport, I look around and I'm looking at the streets and I'm looking at the buildings and I'm what is this place? Why would anyone want to live here? And it's more specifically just the area outside of LAX. It's not the prettiest. But in my head, I'm thinking, what do you mean famous people live here? Here? This is where all the celebrities live. Why does anyone want to move here? Whatever. And I'm sure a lot of people think the same thing about New York City, to be honest. But New York just has a specific charm. And maybe just because I grew up in a city that for me, it's different. I don't know. I think I'm good to end this first episode here. Honestly, I'm doing myself a favor by talking less. I just want to thank everyone for sticking around and watching this first episode. I'm personally very, very terrified to go back and have to edit all of this just because I am a little bit of a perfectionist. That's why I decided to come to a studio to start this podcast. This is actually not my first attempt at starting a podcast. The first attempt was during my last semester of college because I realized that I could go and rent equipment from my school's library. So I got these lighting panels and I got a nice camera, and I even got one of those clapper boards that they use in the movies. I didn't need that. Got microphones. But then there was a lot about podcasting that I learned very, very quickly after that first attempt that I realized for the kind of production level that I want, I'm going to need a studio set up. That's why we're here. thank you so much for watching this first episode. In episode 2, we're going to talk more about this New York City and this LA trip that I've been alluding to this whole time. Where to find me? Username is at Donald with 2 D's at the end, Gray. That's Gray on Instagram, TikTok. You can also follow the Do What You Want Pod account on Instagram. I just like brain farted for a second. You can follow Do What You Want. I actually don't even have I do have the accounts made, but like just nothing's on there yet. So bear with me while I try to like figure out how to tell you guys to go follow these accounts. If you type in Do What You Want, you'll probably find it. Like we all know how to use social media unless you're over the age of, I don't even know, 60. But even then, I'm not. I think the 60-year-olds kind of have it down now. And if they don't, Do What You Want with Donald Gray. New episodes every Saturday.